You're on scene, multi-car pilot. You're surrounded by twisted metal, injured people, and the constant scream of sirens. Your training just kicks in. You move, you assess, you act. In the next minute, you're going to make a dozen decisions that could mean the difference between life and death. You're fighting the clock. You're fighting injuries. You're fighting the sheer chaos of it all. You're fighting bystanders who want to talk about their nursing resume. But what if the biggest threat out here isn't any of that? What if the greatest enemy you face is the two idiot brains fighting inside your own head? You know that feeling of being on autopilot, making snap judgments that just come to you based on years of doing the job? That's your brain taking a shortcut. And in emergency services, we need those shortcuts. They let us act fast when every single second counts. A Nobel Prize winning psychologist named Daniel Kahneman actually gave this a name: System 1 thinking. Think of System 1 as your street smart, gut feeling brain, caveman brain. It's fast, it's intuitive, and it works without you even having to think about it. It's what lets you walk into a room and instantly feel that something is just off. It's pure pattern recognition. You've seen this scene 100 times and your brain tells you, I know what this is. It's that gut feeling that guides so many of our first moves, and it's incredibly powerful. Most of the time, it serves us well. It has to. The number of decisions we would have to make would be completely paralyzing otherwise. When I say 2 plus 2, your caveman says 4. When I say black and, your caveman says white or blue. But there's another part of your brain working too. Kahneman called it System 2. This is your slow, by the book, analytical brain. Think of this system as Mr. Spock from Star Trek. It's deliberate and requires a ton of focus and energy. This is the part of you that works through a complicated diagnosis, calculates a tricky drug dose, or thinks step by step through the procedure you rarely do. System 2 is logical and methodical, but it's also lazy. It gets tired easily and would much rather just let System 1 take over. System 2 can figure out 17 times 4 if you can keep Mr. Spock focused for long enough. And that's where the problem starts. On an emergency scene, your brain is under siege. Stress, time pressure, distractions, a flood of information create the perfect storm to shut down your slow, logical Spock system. The chaos forces you to rely almost totally on the fast, intuitive caveman. And while that part of your brain is fast, it's also wired for biases and errors. It jumps to conclusions. It takes dangerous shortcuts. In the world of EMS, it's estimated that a huge portion of medical mistakes come from these kinds of cognitive errors. And these shortcuts can be deadly. Let's make this real. Imagine you're sent to a 6-year-old who's having trouble breathing. You get there and find an anxious mom and a wheezing kid. Your caveman System 1 brain, the fast one, immediately screams asthma. It's a classic picture you've seen over and over. That mental shortcut is called the availability heuristic. Your brain is just relying on the most recent or memorable example. So you start down the asthma treatment path. But as you're working, your partner points out that the child isn't actually getting all that better with the nebulizer and has a faint rash on his chest. Your System 1, though, is already locked in. Caveman's rolling. It starts looking for evidence that confirms what it already thinks. This is confirmation bias, the tendency to favor information that backs up your initial idea. You might just brush off the rash as nothing important. Even worse, that first piece of dispatch info, difficulty breathing, has already anchored you to a certain mindset. This is anchoring bias. The asthma diagnosis has built up so much momentum in your head that it's hard to change course, something we call diagnosis momentum. So you could completely miss the subtle signs of anaphylaxis, a much bigger, more immediate life threat. All because your brain got stuck on the first fast caveman idea. Grog says asthma. Nowhere is this internal battle more dangerous than with giving meds. Doing math under pressure is a classic Spock System 2 job. It's slow and takes focus. Having to calculate pounds to kilograms to milligrams per kilogram based on the concentration. Now, how many milliliters do I draw up? That's a lot to do, especially at 3 in the morning when you were dead asleep to the world 12 minutes ago. This is slow and takes focus, two things you just don't have in the back of a speeding ambulance with a patient who's crashing. Under that kind of stress, your brain tries to hand that job over to the fast but faulty caveman, which is absolutely terrible at math. The caveman is an idiot when it comes to numbers. The results are catastrophic. Study after study shows that medication dosing errors are one of the most common and dangerous mistakes that we make. And for pediatric patients, the problem is even worse. In some studies, error rates for critical drugs like epinephrine have exceeded 60%. Let that sink in. More often than not, the dose is wrong. This isn't because of bad providers, it's because of good providers working in a system that pushes their brains past their absolute limits. We've been taught to just memorize and recall, that good medics can memorize the whole protocol book. But research shows that this can actually make errors more likely. Relying on mental math in a crisis is a fundamentally flawed process, and it's a direct result of the war between your two brains. So if our own minds can be the biggest liability on a scene, what do? We can't get rid of the stress. We can't stop the chaos. The answer isn't just try harder or be smarter. The answer is to build systems and strategies that back up our brains and shield us from our own cognitive traps. First, and this is the big one, offload the thinking. Your brain's working memory has a limit. When it gets overloaded, it makes mistakes. The solution is to use cognitive aids, checklists, protocols, and pre-calculated drug dosing guides. This is hand-Tevi and RSI checklists, Broslow tapes. These tools aren't a crutch, they're a professional standard of care. They move a complex task like calculating a drug dose out of your error-prone gut feeling brain and into the reliable world of System 2, but without the mental strain. One study found that using a simple app for dosing calculations dropped the rate of major errors from an incredible 92% all the way down to 0. Using a pre-calculated guide isn't just an improvement, it's a total transformation of patient safety. Even pilots use checklists for most major operations, and they have landed planes thousands of times in some cases. They still use a checklist. Second, we have to practice something called metacognition. I know, it's a fancy word, but the idea is simple and powerful. Thinking about your thinking about how you think. It's about building deliberate pauses to challenge what you assume to be true. You can do this on every call just by asking a few key questions. What else could this be? Somewhere around here. This question forces you to fight against getting anchored on your first idea. How about this one? What's the worst case scenario here, and have I ruled it out? This keeps you on your toes and makes sure you're focused on the most critical threats. These questions are like a mental speed bump. They interrupt your autopilot, they interrupt the caveman rolling down the trail, and force your slow, logical Spock brain to engage. Third, you have to train like you fight. High fidelity simulation isn't just for practicing skills, it's for practicing making decisions under pressure. By recreating the stressful, high stakes environment of a real call, you can practice using your cognitive aids and asking these questions until it becomes second nature. You can actually train your fast, intuitive brain to have better instincts. Finally, you have to build a culture where your team has your back. Encourage your partners and other team members to speak up if something doesn't seem right. A simple, hey, did we think about this? Could be all it takes to snap me out of a cognitive trap. I'm giving you permission to question me, even if it's your first month as an EMT. Remember, even the most seasoned provider is vulnerable to this stuff. Your team is one of your most powerful defenses. Check my med math. It's a fantastic question. The fight inside our minds is one that every first responder faces on every single shift. Understanding it is the first step to winning. If you found this helpful, do me a favor. Share this with a colleague you like and trust. You know all the other social media stuff too. You don't need me to remind you. Being a great first responder isn't about having everything memorized. It's not about being immune to pressure. It's about recognizing the limits of our own minds and building solid systems to protect our patients and ourselves. It's about having the humility to use a checklist, the courage to question your own gut feeling, and the wisdom to know that your brain, for all its power, can still get it wrong. Stay safe, stay sharp, and keep fighting the good fight. I'm Angry Bill. This is Prehospital Wisdom. And until next time, stay safe.